what I will point out about this, this composition, it's really quite a simple composition. Provided you're not getting too much glare off the screen here, you can see that I think at the bottom here in my sort of tips and information, I think I mentioned something like, can you identify the eye line? Well, I was sort of teasing a little bit there because it can be quite difficult in the absence of a shoreline or a horizon line. If we had the sea, that would be easy. That line is always going to be the eye line. The eye line and the horizon line are exactly the same thing. But in landscapes, it can be a lot trickier. But there's always a tendency, a natural tendency, when we look at our plane. By the plane, I literally mean, you know, the space, the paper. There's a natural tendency to put it somewhere down here. I don't know where that comes from, but it feels natural to think of the eye line and the horizon to be somewhere down here. So that's what really we've got here. I know we've got a little figure. I've painted in a small figure over here. And effectively, you could argue that that figure, the head of that figure gives you the eye line, which would take this eye line up a bit, okay? But yeah, as I say, and that's the reason why I've mentioned it, because the figure could really sort of throw your concept or ideas to where that eye line is. But if this sandy bank, this beach that we're looking at in this scene, is elevated slightly, then the eye line will actually be behind it, will be a little bit lower, and the figure is actually above the eye line. Hope that makes sense. At the end of the day, it's a case of just often, particularly in landscapes, what feels right. So as I say, as long as you avoid dividing the paper 50-50. Right, let's crack on with this. The first thing I want us to consider is when we look at the arrangement of boats, okay? This isn't, as you've obviously guessed already, this is not from a photograph. It might have been originally, it's from a painting I did quite some time ago. And I would have used, it's quite possible that I had one photo of a boat somewhere when I was going back and forth to Norfolk and places like that. And great beaches over there for boats on beaches and scenes like that. But it could have been, this was a photo of just one boat or two boats. And I just invented this arrangement, okay? And like any good arrangement, any good composition, it's all about it's all about aesthetics and balance and almost a sort of poetic sequence, if you like, okay? Rather than otherwise, if we weren't thinking along those lines as something elegant as we move across the shapes, we would just dot them randomly. There would be no relationship between the shapes. If they were all dotted separately and isolated, there would be absolutely no warmth, no elegance, no poetry, no movement to the painting. So this is why I've arranged them like I have. You might choose to arrange them different, and that's absolutely fine. And I don't know why I'm starting with this one here, but that's maybe something to do with the fact that I'm right-handed. I've had honestly no idea. There's one boat there, and see how, I think the reason why I've chosen this one is because these two boats at this section show very clearly what I'm talking about, how you intertwine, how you interlock these two shapes, okay? And even though we can't see the very bottom of that second left-hand boat, we know it's somewhere around there, okay? There's that boat there. They are shallow. Make sure, don't go drawing really deep boats, okay? They're really shallow. Now, the only reason why there's a boat over on the right-hand side, if you haven't already guessed, is because it acts as a sort of punctuation mark. It stops the viewer from disappearing out of the story, okay? But look at what I want you to sort of think about is the relationship here. Look at the space there between the front end of this little boat that's on its side, or side on to us, sorry, and the wall of this next boat. And that distance there, and that shape even, is important. Front end of that little boat is quite vertical. The wall of this boat is slightly turned in, and that gives you a shape in itself inside there. And it's all about, I mean, in my original painting, that's a narrower gap. It doesn't matter, as long as the gap and the shape is interesting, okay? So we've got a small gap between this one and that boat there. In fact, I think I'm going to bring these next two boats here a bit closer than they are closer to us, these two, than those two there. Those two a little bit further on, as we got the figure there. So we'll make them a little bit bigger again. Otherwise, we're going to have very small shapes, and we'll never complete the storyline over here on the left-hand side. So by making the scale of this boat here slightly bigger, don't know exactly where the back end of this boat is, but I'm assuming it's something like that. Imagine if there was a center point there where an outboard motor would be fixed. That would be about the center line of the back of that little boat. And what goes on top, we don't want to concern ourselves with at the moment. If you observe my painting, there's lots of inference. There's suggestions of things on top or inside the boat. Don't worry about that, unless you really want to pencil in a couple of marks like I've just done there to sort of help you along the way. But all these and the masts and the rigging will be done with paint. So there is that boat. And again, just as we've got over here, we've got a sort of repeat, if you like, of the same sort of thing going on. We've got a second boat about here, something like that. And again, the shapes meet, okay? They meet up. So we'll put our figure in about here, because that's what's on my original painting. But if we want another figure over here, maybe, you know, there's somebody else on the beach tending to their little boat, leaning over this boat, something like that. I'll zoom in a moment so you can see my drawing a bit better. And then this is a little bit, I suppose, a little contrived. I've given us a second boat, almost a mirror image of this boat on the right hand side. Now, if you can come up with something more interesting than that, than just repeating the design, then be my guest. Maybe you want to put a slightly, you know, a little boat over here with a bit of a cabin or something. You know, be careful with that though, because if it's the only boat with a cabin, it'll draw the eye, okay, away from really what's probably going to be this area here as a focal point. So that's why I think it's pretty safe just to infer another little vessel here, maybe a smaller one a bit further down the beach, if you don't want it to look exactly the same as the right hand side. Now, is the beach flat? It is more or less, because I've indicated that by my use of shadows as they fall on the sand off the boats. There's nothing sloping. There's no sense of diagonal to the shadows. They are falling on a flat surface. Okay. I have tapered one over here. You could argue that goes diagonal, but by diagonal, I mean, if it were doing that or curving, that would suggest that the beach was not flat. Okay. But if you step the shadow down in a sort of soft diagonal, that tells you that this is the shadow off the mast, okay, which I'll put in a moment. But because each little mark is flat to the surface, it really keeps that sense of the beach being flat. Okay. Now, don't underestimate these dark shadows that link the shapes between boats. They are absolutely essential to the continuity, to the flow of the painting and the design. And a good painting does rely on a good sense of design. And I'd love to do a lesson one day just purely on giving people ideas on design and how to get into design. So comments on a postcard, or whatever they say, if you want to drop me an email, if you fancy something like that, I'll put something specific together for that. Anyway, right, back to the job in hand here. So there's no masts at the moment. Now, I freehand masts mostly, okay? You can just, what I do is I rest, let me just zoom in here a second so I can show you what I mean. Let's go the right way with my lens. It'll go out of focus. Bear with me a second while I refocus. There, something like that. I'll get back to the actual back out in a moment. This is how I freehand my mast. Okay, all three fingers, the flat of that hand there is resting on the paper. Okay, and then I drop my pencil nib to the point where it makes contact with the surface, and I just run a line down like that. Take a little bit of it out. You don't want that hard pencil line showing through it. And then the rigging can just be it really is a simple thing, the rigging. You just very lightly drawing a line, something like this. And the paraphernalia, the block and tackle, the pulleys, whatever that system is, you just dot that with paint later. Okay, now then, if you don't have the confidence to do lines like that freehand, don't feel like you're cheating. Please, it's not a cheat to use a straight edge. Okay, anything you like, a ruler. This is just a decorator's tool. You could, I'm going to put a couple more masts in this painting than are in the original. Just what you've got to do, this is really important. You've got to have established the flat of the boat deck, okay? Because the mast has to be at 90 degrees to that flat. It has to be perpendicular. So if the boat is slightly angled, let's say like this one here, you see that the flat of this boat here with the chap standing next to it, it's not flat to the ground. That would be flat to the ground. It's slightly down on the left-hand side. That means the flat of the deck of that boat there, if you could see through the wall of that boat, it was made of glass, something like that. You've got to run your mast perpendicular or to 90 degrees off that flat there. Otherwise, it's going to look really bad. Okay, something like that. If I were to exaggerate a real angle on one of these boats, it was really listing down on its side, then you must sort of say, well, there's the flat of the boat where the mast is coming out of the deck. That mast, of course, would be something like that. Okay, I hope you can see that. My lines are pretty faint, I know, but I think you're probably getting the gist of this. Okay, let me just get rid of that. And whenever I was practicing things like this, I would have I would have these boats like this in the foreground. And let me just put this other mast in a minute. I want this one to turn in ever so slightly, and I'll tell you why in a moment. So that mast just turning in from left to right, leaning into the scene. Really, that mast there would be better if it leaned slightly into the scene, because that gives you a little hint of an A shape there. Always good when lines are very powerful. Okay, always good when your lines bring us into inside rather than push your viewer out. Okay, so what we could do, we could say there's a load of smaller boats down here somewhere, down just beyond these boats down the beach. You don't have to put the boats in, but a couple of masts. We'll have the edge ones turning in like that for reasons I just mentioned. A couple of those smaller boats down there, and you can almost make you can almost not make it too busy in terms of masts. It's all about inference. Right. Okay. So I think we ought to get some paint going. What I might do, I know these run over time, and that's the trouble with a 1.5 hour lesson. You know, we might have to review this as time goes by as to whether we extend these 1.5 hour lessons to 2 hour lessons. But anyway, I thought it really important to show you that design and talk about it a bit on this occasion. I was going to say we could sort of stop and take a pause, but I'll have to keep an eye on the clock, folks. I mean, I'm always quite happy to go beyond the time, but it's your time that I have to respect, of course. So anyway, so very quickly, there's not much in the foreground, as you can see. Okay, we may decide to put the odd dot in here, because the odd dot, if it's strong and warm enough, will just bring a little bit of sense of depth to the painting. Okay, right, let's get some paint going.
So before we begin, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, and if you want immediate notifications as and when I upload new videos, then do please remember to click on the bell icon.
I'm going to pick up my, oh, that would be good, brushes. So I think I'm going to start with the 1-inch flat. I'm going to, come back out. So you'll be able to see my easel. Let me just refocus there a moment. So you can see my palette as well now. Okay. So flat 1-inch flat brush. When we used to use, for those of you that remember the days of when we used to convene at St. Thomas's Church Hall in Cardiff, you remember that I only ever used to use a badger brush, a wash brush, but that was because of the size of the paper that I was using. Okay, that it was twice this size. So for now, really, I'm just using this this 1-inch shaping brush. Okay, so what I'm mixing here is a very weak mix of cobalt blue there, and a little bit of the phthalo green. Be really mean with the phthalo green. You don't want a green sky. You want a sort of turquoise colored sky. Just going to go in very quickly with paint, and then even quicker picking up water. Okay, we can make as much or as little of this sky as you wish. Okay, but I do like the directional brush strokes in this situation. Go a bit stronger. That's a bit weak. So, but I'm starting at the top. If you watch, okay, my brush always firstly lands at the top of the sky here. But now, before this gets too much chance to dry, I'm just going to pick up in this well here, cleaning the brush, pick up some raw sienna, not too strong. Sorry, put it there so you can see it. I put it in the wrong thing then. Yeah, just pick up that raw sienna, and let's just warm the sky up a little bit in the lower territory, okay? Right at the edge. So you always sort of make contact between both the dry white paper and the edge of the blue at the same time. Make some good shapes though. You know, look at that edge. It's an abstract broken edge, okay? As I say, we could make as much or as little of the sky as you wish. Could even bring a little bit more of the blue back down in the lower areas in some places, suggesting that the shape's down here a little bit smaller because that's the sky a bit further away from us down there. Okay, now if you don't, and what will happen in a moment is you'll get some very hard edges. Now sometimes those hard edges at the edges at the bottom of your sky will work and they'll look fine. Other occasions you'll find the need just to do what I'm doing now, and that's land this dampish, wettish brush here on the untouched area of paper of the sky and just manipulate until you got that edge how you want it, how you imagine it to be. And it is about imagination. So there we go. I'm almost, if you like, getting rid of every bit of white paper in the sky. But having said that, leaving a lot of almost white paper. So it's just water really in the bottom of that sky. And as I say, you could spend more time on this sky. You could have a stormy sky, have whatever you want. I thought I'd put something in the middle for us today because it's really about the boats. Okay, now then, let's get to the beach. Okay, and remember I was using raw sienna here a moment ago. Just going to pick up. I've contaminated this little area with blue as it's filtered over from there. So I just want to make sure this is lovely and warm. So I'm getting rid of the blue out of that mixing area. And I just picked up light red. Now you may have cadmium red, that's fine. But I'm going to start with light red for the beach. And light red it's a funny color. It's even the best quality, like Winsor & Newton artist quality light reds, can be a little bit weak. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you something I do just for the sake of safety. Take another brush, any brush you like, and let's have a little bit of water right up to the bottom of the boats, okay? Like this, right up here like that. Bring a little bit of that water down to the rest of the beach, down here. And with that ready, I then get my 1-inch brush back in my hand and just take some passes through here. See how weak that is? Made weaker, of course, because I did pre-wet the surface, admittedly, but let's just get a covering. So, like all good paintings, we're only ever, when we start, we're only ever dealing with the big shapes, that big, massive sky shape, now the next bigger shape, which is the beach. Oh, you can elaborate in this beach if you want. Let's perhaps bring in a little bit of raw sienna. Making sure, I just had that thought then. Did I press record? Yes, I did. So here's a bit of raw sienna. You could even bring in a little bit of alizarin crimson. But if you think about it, look how close all three, I've used three colors, light red, raw sienna, and now I'm picking up a bit of alizarin crimson. But really, they're very close colors in the first place. They just, by using three colors like this, bring some nice subtlety to the to the entire image, to this area. I'm going to go quite rich, quite like this combination anyway. A bit warm around here. I take off these bits here because keep an eye on that, folks. If you're like me, I mean, I'm on a shallow angle, about less than 20 degrees, probably about 15-degree angle on this because of the, that's what I have to do for the camera. So what happens is you do end up with paint and water congregating at the edge of your masking tape. Now, if you ignore that, okay, what will happen is as you're dealing with other things and you've taken your mind off the ball, or taken your eye off the ball, these little pockets and wells will bleed back in as cauliflowers, and they'll perhaps spoil the foreground for you. What I'm going to do now that I've got the paint on, and this is quite an advanced technique, I suppose, or something that perhaps gets overlooked, I should say. Once you use rich paint like this, don't be weak, don't be mean with your paint, okay? But once you've got it on there, once you've got the richness of paint on there, then do some lift outs, take some out. Because I just had this brush in the water tub, getting the paint out and getting the water out and making it a thirsty brush. And this will allow us to do some lift outs near the boats. Okay, so just in certain areas and make them sort of horizontal. Remember, the beach is horizontal. That's what we're trying to convey. So it makes sense to lift your little areas of pockets of light out in a horizontal flat fashion like this. Right, okay. Now it's just gone 11 o'clock. I think we're in good time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed dry this. And before I do, let's get rid of these colors. Okay. Right. Because what I want to do next, I can't do on wet. So we've been working wet in wet, both for the sky and both for the beach itself. Okay. Notice I keep mopping up that buildup because of that potential issue of cauliflowers and runbacks. Keep mopping up anything that builds up there. So sorry. Right. Let me speed dry this. Yeah, it doesn't take long. So let's have a look at our image again. So look how dark, look at how dark those shapes are. And they're just shapes, remember, that's all everything it is just a shape. It just happens to be a boat. And that's the story. That's the information that we need to make sure we nail. That they are just shapes, but it's important that those shapes are. It's clear that what they are. So the thing I hope you notice with this, and if you've got your own copy of this in front of you, can you see how I've left white slithers? It's almost as though there's a surface to each one of those boats that is catching the light. There's the dark of the hull of the boat, and then there's this pale area above it, and then there are some individual little marks that tell us that there's, the paraphernalia, the equipment, whatever it is, the structures just sit above within that area of light that's on top of those boats. Right, okay, I'm going to put that out of the way for a moment. So now it's entirely up to you as to whether you want to use a round brush. Whatever you do, please don't use a small brush at this stage, okay? It's much better that you just choose. If you're like me, I'm right-handed, and I have to tell myself this so many times. I don't do this, and I should. Sometimes I'll just think I'll start over here because I fancy working firstly on that boat. Really, what I should do is work from left to right so that my hand is not spoiling the wet paint, because you will be wanting to move on, and you don't want to be working over here and have to speed dry it or wait for it to dry because your hand's going to smudge it. So really, and these are just practical issues. But as I say, what I want us to do, and I'm going to show you this way, is I'm going to paint this one with the large brush, this one and this one. So 3 boats, okay? And then we'll do those 3 separately. And the color that I'm going to use, we just need to get them blocked in. So it's still really thinking the biggest shapes first, okay? So let's pick up some cobalt blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue. And this is where it gets interesting. I'm going to put some alizarin crimson in that will give us a nice purple color, okay? And then I'm going to add a little bit of light red. Okay, so it's a really strong, rich, warm, dark color. Now, if it's not dark enough, the color you should have in front of you when you're done mixing with this is a deep red plum type color. Okay, Now, if it doesn't go dark enough, sometimes that's where I'll bring in the assistance of Payne's Grey or neutral tint. But make sure it has that sort of plummy quality to it. So I need a bit more red for my plummy type color. And I want to make that plum color, that red plum color, a bit warmer. So what gives me the warmth now is the light red. And there it is. It's that sort of, as I say, a sort of, but it's difficult for me to sort of show you with the reflection on the color, but that's why I describe it verbally to you. It should really be a sort of warm plum red. Bit more of that, and I think I'm ready to go. Okay, so let's get a clean edge on top of this little shape here, using the point of the brush. Okay, I'm not using the belly of the brush on this occasion. What I like to do, I'll take this little brush here, or actually that hasn't got a great end to it, and a brush with a spiky end to it, like this one. I mean, I've got various things I use. I'll even use my fingernail sometimes like this, just to nick off a little bit of the paint that I've just used there and bring the paint up. But this tool here is quite useful. I could get a mooring rope off it because the paint is wet. I'll just make some marks on top of that little boat. Don't be too fussy with this one. It's not about this little boat in particular per se. Now then, quickly moving on to the neighboring boat, or the next nearest boat. Do remember, as I say, that you will be needing to, you've got to imagine that slither of light, which is, I suppose, reflected light off the gunwale, the top of the boat. Now we're getting towards the edge of the nearer boat again on the right hand side, so leave a little slither of light there. Think about the shape of the back end of this boat. What angle is it to us? It's really just flat to us at the back end. Okay, so it's going to look something like this. So that's how simple it is. As long as you get that shape right, and you allow for, you know, the shape of the side of the boat. Just taking the smaller brush now and making sure I've got that a good shape for that edge there. Now I want to put the shadow in straight away between these boats, and with the smaller brush, this is the size 6 round, I'm going to connect these, and as soon as a shadow goes in that connects these boats together, literally make contact with the wet paint of the boat. Okay, as soon as that goes in, you see sunlight. It's amazing. The shadows, but we create light by painting shadows and darks. Now maybe the mast travels across the ground like this. Don't go back into a paint mark that you've made. If you've made that mark off this boat, don't go into it twice, 3 times, 4 times. Make sure the brush is fully loaded before you make your shape. Okay, I'm loading the brush here, and say, well, one mark, leave it. Another mark down here coming off this boat, off the mast. 1 mark, leave it. I've made a line there that's an inch, just over an inch long. So let's make sure we don't do another one the same length, okay? But it's 1 brush mark every time. It's 1 brush mark, and then as it falls across the ground here, more broken inference of things. So let's go into this next boat again, leaving that. Being mindful to leave that edge there between the 2 boats. That little slither of light will indicate there's a reflective edge of 1 boat before it goes into the second boat. And just pulling that across. Think about how the boat is on the sand. It won't be, you won't see any shape to the bottom of the boat because it's sitting in or on the sand, okay? So here we go. And I think I'm just going to take, with this shadow, I'm just going to once again link this boat. This point of this brush lands in the wet paint of this boat here in the corner, bottom corner. and it travels across the sand, makes contact with this boat here. Now we don't have to do that boat, because what I want to show you for a moment here, while these boats are still wet, okay, is I've cleaned this round brush, and I'm going to pick up a nice warm bit of what's this color called? Light red, okay. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to work wet into wet. We can say that on the sides of the boat here, that surface is reflecting some of the warmth of the sand, okay. Got to be really wet. That's got to be a really wet in wet application. If you haven't done this quick enough and you've let that boat dry, the dark color, the first color dry, you cannot do what I've just done. It'll look awful. You've got to work speedily and get that color in wet. Shouldn't be difficult, because they're not massive shapes. It's not as if you've had to do a really big shape over here of one big boat and then, well, blimey, you know, you've got to get in there really quickly. These are small shapes. This sort of stuff can be done quite quickly. Now let's get the other boats finished. And amiss of me, I've probably not made enough of that plummy color. So, but my get out clause here was that they're not connected. So these are a little bit further away. So if this is a slightly different plummy color, it's no bad thing really, because they're a little bit further away from us. They might need to be a little bit cooler. There we are. So I've remixed that. So let's get these boats in. I wonder if we can just one brush mark look for that boat. Always a great, that should always be our challenge, our goal. Can we do something in a single brush mark? Well, truth is, you probably can't do it in one brush stroke, but there's no harm in trying. Just clean up the edge, make contact with that shadow there. That's enough. And then just as, oh, by the way, I should have gone over that one slightly, because that boat there probably just goes beyond the right-hand boat. Sorry, right. So just here above this boat, that's, you've got to allow for its edge, its white top edge, remember. So that means that the boat that's behind it has to be painted accordingly, leaving that shape above this boat on the left. So there we are. There's another boat. And finally, here's our little boat that's on the side there. Okay, a nice clean front edge to that little boat. Let's get the shadows to link them all together. Picking up a little bit more of what I hope to be the same color, sorry. Okay, now let's do these no-nonsense shadow lines. Okay, there they are. There they go. Connecting the boats. A little bit off the bottom of this boat. Maybe we can leave. We don't need. You know, the danger now often is that we do too much of everything. So anywhere you think you might get away with another mark for a shadow off a mast or off the end of a boat, put it in, but be careful. It's all too easy to do too much of this this shadow work now. Okay, and I'm telling you as much as I'm telling myself here. You probably would need to put a little bit of this warmth in those distant boats, those boats that are a bit further away from us. So just a bit of warmth in there before it gets a chance to dry out. Okay, there are other things you can do here, if you so wish. If you feel as though it would be effective to do a little lift out, you know, maybe this nearest boat here, because it's nearer, you just see something, you see a bit more information, and that information might be a bit of light. So with a thirsty brush, I'll just take a little light out of the side wall of that boat there. If you do something like that and you don't like it, you can always be straight back into your puddle over here and let it dry a little bit. I couldn't do it now because there's too much water. I've introduced more water to that shape. But in a moment, when that dries off, I could be back in my puddle and I can paint it out because I didn't like it. Okay. Right. I'm going to speed dry these shapes. I think we've got time, folks. It's 20 past 11. I think we've got time for a 5-minute chat, okay? Just to see how you're getting on. You know, watercolor paper has a resist, something called size that's put in it. You probably know this. And what that does is it stops the water from going in straight away.
All right, okay.
So if you give it a minute to 2 minutes, sometimes 2.5 minutes, but somewhere around that sort of window of opportunity, just let the water go into the paper rather than it sat on top. You'll get a slightly different effect, you see, if you go in straight away. If you get used to that, it's fine. But I think a good safety measure is to put the water on, leave it a minute, 2 minutes, and then you're good to go. Are we okay, folks, to go back? Right. Now, I want to show you a couple of ways of doing these masts with paint, because once again, it can get a bit hairy if you're relying on the steadiness of your hand. And there's no need there's no need for that. You know, it doesn't make you a better or worse artist if you can do them freehand. Okay. I only do it because it's just something I try to keep going. But I know one day, and it's probably that day's coming sooner rather than later, where I'm going to have to rely on the steadying of a straight edge. So it's up to you, folks. Use anything you like. As I say, if you're using a straight edge, I tend to put an edge down like that. I don't know whether you can see this, slightly angled under here. It's down on that edge there, and I'll load the brush and I'll get the metal ferrule on the edge of this plastic edge, and I'll just run the brush down there like that. I didn't have any paint on there, but just run the brush. I'm not that keen on that method. I would prefer to do this. This is another method. You take a credit card. You know what's coming. I'm sure you've probably already done it yourselves. And I'm in this little bit of rich paint here. So I've got paint on the edge of the credit card. Be careful that it's perpendicular to the boat and just run that down. Don't run it too far. Make sure you're on the right plane here, and don't bend the card, and just do a couple. They can overlap, it's okay. And it's only the masts. I find the rigging is better when it's done freehand, even when it goes off and it goes askew. So let's do a couple of these other masts. See, I went off slightly then, okay? So I couldn't see the edge of my card, but that can do as a rigging line now.